Listen, we suck. Everyone knows it. No one is showing up to these games and we gotta do something. Oh, how about some t-shirts? Or what about a hat? Some kind of bobblehead maybe? Nobody wants to go out repping this shitty team. Come on now, we need something big, something that's gonna bring everyone and their mother. Hey, what about that beer thing them Rangers did? You know, 10-cent beer night or whatever it was? I mean, who doesn't like getting drunk and having a little fun? I know I sure do. Let people have a couple beers. People just sit back and relax or whatever. It'd be fun. I mean, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? Well, if you thought just hearing the words 10-cent beer night was a terrible idea, then you couldn't be more correct. You know what else was terrible? The city of Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland was a mess. The population was declining, people were leaving the city to live elsewhere, over 600 factories moved out of the city due to foreign markets, causing thousands of jobs to be lost, the river kept catching on fire thanks to industrial pollution due to said factories, and the crime rate was just really high. Cleveland was a shit show, and so was the 1974 Cleveland Indians. They weren't that great, to put it nicely. At the time, they were 24-26, and hadn't finished above 500 since 1968, not to mention fan attendance was incredibly low. In a stadium that could hold over 78,000 fans, the largest outdoor stadium in the world at the time, Municipal Stadium was lucky to see a few thousand fans on a good day. To put it simply, nobody wanted to watch a bad team. But on June 4th, 1974, things were about to change. At least for a day, but before I get into that, it's important to talk about what happened before that historical day. A week prior, the Indians were facing the Rangers in Arlington, Texas, who had successfully held a 10-cent beer night promotion themselves. A normal game played on until a brawl would eventually ensue, caused by Rangers player Larry Randall, who would slide hard into a base, trying to break up a double play. The Indians were not happy about this, and when it was their turn to pitch, they would try and beam Randall. They would end up missing him, and he would bunt the ball, plowing into pitcher Max Wilcox after he attempted to tag Randall out at first. Indians first baseman John Ellis was angered and would immediately come to his pitcher's aid, punching Randall straight in the face and tackling him to the ground. The benches would clear and a full-on real fight would break out. After the players settled down, the Indians returned to their dugouts and were showered with hot dogs and beer thrown by rowdy and drunken Rangers fans. Indians catcher Dave Duncan was angry by this and had to be held back by his teammates to prevent him from rushing into the stands and fighting the fans. If it couldn't get any worse for the Indians, they would lose the game against the Rangers, just adding to the mockery and ridiculing from Rangers fans. After the game, Rangers manager Billy Martin was asked by reporters if he was worried about retaliation when they would face the Indians the following week in Cleveland. He smugly replied with a, "They don't have enough fans there to worry about." Indians fans were outraged over this comment, and a Cleveland radio host spent the whole week riling up fans for the Rangers and Indians game come that week. To add fuel to the fire, the Plain Dealer released a picture ad of Chief Wahoo in boxing gloves with the caption, "Be ready for anything." The Indians had the bright idea of holding their own 10-cent beer night. It worked out well for the Rangers after all, so why not for the Indians? They sent out the promotion offer and waited. And oh boy, did it work. Over 25,000 fans showed up to Tuesday night's game, over double the average attendance at the time. Now, before we get into the game, let's talk about the regulation system set up for fans, or, well, lack thereof. Fans were allowed to purchase 6 beers per transaction. 6 beers per purchase with no limit. That meant fans were allowed to buy 6 beers, leave, then come back and buy 6 more beers whenever they wanted, over and over and over again. And by the way, there was no system in place to prevent people from buying alcohol for minors. Speaking of minors, guess who was serving the alcohol? 2 teenage girls in rather small clothing all by themselves. 2 young girls serving thousands of rowdy fans alcohol. What a wonderful idea! Alright, now, what's going on in the game? Not much happened during the first, although many fans were already on track to being very, very drunk. Things really kick-started in the second when Rangers DH Tom Grieve hit a home run, putting the Rangers in the lead. This was unsurprisingly met with a wave of boos and disapproval. A few pitches later, a middle-aged woman rushed the field, flashing the crowd who, in turn, cheered her on, and then proceeded to try and kiss lead ump Nestor Chilak? I'm sorry in advance if I butcher any names. I'm not good with names. Anyways, she was escorted off the field by police. In the 4th inning, Tom Grieve would hit his 2nd home run, and while he was rounding the bases, a man completely naked except for a single black sock ran onto the field, sliding into 2nd. Shortly after, Indians batter Leron Lee hit a line drive into the stomach of Rangers pitcher Fergie Jenkins, and he fell to the ground in pain. The fans of course cheered and letting out chants like, "Hit him harder, again!" An inning later, a father and son duo climbed down onto the field from the outfield wall and proceeded to moon the Rangers outfield. Nice. Now, up until this point, these were mostly harmless and just obnoxious, but that would very quickly change. Fans took it upon themselves to bring firecrackers to the game, and they would very frequently pepper the stands with them, which obviously poses a very high safety issue. On top of the smoke smell from the fireworks, a horrible mix of beer and marijuana filled the air, only adding to the unpleasant atmosphere that was packed with thousands of rambunctious drunk people. A little later in the inning, Leron Lee was called safe at a very close play at 3rd. When Rangers manager Billy Martin came to argue the call, fans began throwing beer and hot dogs at him, to which he replied by blowing kisses into the crowd on his way back to the dugout. Some fans were not happy about this and responded by throwing firecrackers into the Rangers bullpen, causing an evacuation call and forcing players to warm up directly on the mound. It was once again no surprise that every time a Rangers player stepped up to plate, they were met by an onslaught of booze, vulgar language, and beer. The atmosphere was getting tense, and the sound of war drums beating faster than normal up in the nosebleeds only added to the unusual and uncomfortable feeling. As the game continued, fans were getting a lot more aggressive. It's important to note that the Indians were not prepared for all of this, only hiring 50 security guards for over 25,000 people. You can already see where this is going. Fans were constantly running onto the field, throwing things, and just damaging everything they could. Yeah, so remember how I said there are 2 teenage girls serving alcohol to all these fans? Well, they ended up not being able to keep up, and so they just left. With the beer being completely unattended, 10-cent beer night was now free, and people were not shying away from taking advantage of it. Fans were literally just stealing the beer taps off the trucks and just taking it. During all of the chaos, announcers were constantly reminding fans to not litter, but of course, if you tell someone not to do something, especially when they're drunk, they're probably going to want to do it more. And guess what? They did. Not once were the groundskeepers able to sit down, and while they did their best to keep the field playable, fans used them as moving target practice. When Rangers player Mike Hargrove came to play first, fans threw a half-full jug of wine at him, nearly missing him by just inches. Streakers stormed the field, throwing their clothes into left field, while fans on the third baseline started ripping the padding off the left field wall. Grounds crew abandoned their attempt at cleaning the field and instead turned their attention to trying to prevent fans from stealing the wall padding. By the 7th inning, things were really starting to get bad, and some fans were at this point trying to flee the stadium. In the 8th, front office associates were seen leaving to protect themselves from what was to come. In the 9th inning, the Indians managed to score 2 runs, tying up the game. With the player on second, a potentially winning run, a fan rushed onto the field and tried flipping off Rangers outfielder Jeff Burrow's hat. When he went to chase after the fan, he turned and tripped, falling to the ground. Okay, so he fell down in a horrible attempt at catching a fan, just another reason to make fun of him, right? Well, from the dugout, that's not exactly what it looked like. Barely being able to see over the mound, it kind of looked like their player had been attacked. Rangers manager Billy Martin armed himself with a fungo bat and called for players to rush the field and fight back with an iconic, "Let's go get 'em, boys." Yeah, that was a mistake. A really big mistake. Burrows was uninjured, thankfully, but it was then that the Rangers had found themselves surrounded by 200 angry and heavily intoxicated fans. Dangerous fans. In their hands, they wielded knives, chains, and what could only be described as clubs fashioned from the stadium seats. It was here that a riot would start. Indians manager Ken saw the danger the Rangers were in, and he immediately ordered his team to come to their aid, arming themselves with their own bats to fend off their own fans. It was bad. Oh, so bad, and it was only getting worse. Their lives were now in danger, and the team managers quickly looked for a way to get their players out. They led both teams through the dugout and into connecting tunnels. Bench players took the rear, fending off any stray fans and protecting others while they tended to their injuries. During all of this, fans were stealing everything. Anything that wasn't nailed down to the ground was gone forever. Even the bases were stolen, and to this day, they have never been returned. In an attempt to calm down the crowd or get the tiniest bit of control, the stadium organist played "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," but instead of soothing the rowdy fans, it only played as a haunting soundtrack to the brutal chaos ensuing. It was out of control. At one point, someone threw a knife at the lead ump, which only landed a mere few feet behind his leg. Another fan hit him with a chair. He declared forfeit and escaped, something that really should have been a long time ago. Players and other fans weren't the only ones in danger. Reporter Dan Coughlin of the Chronicle-Telegram of Lorain County, Ohio, was punched twice in the face in an attempt to interview some fans. Fortunately, most of the reporters were able to escape with the players. It took about half an hour and alleged tear gas to get the crowd to disperse. Thanks to ballpark attendant workers who turned off the stadium lights and a SWAT team, the nightmare was finally mostly over. Indians players volunteered to escort Rangers to their team bus for safety, and fortunately, their bus was still there and in one piece. 9 fans were arrested, 7 people were left with injuries severe enough to cause an emergency room visit, and over 60,000 beers were consumed that night. Now, despite all of this, fortunately, Cleveland did not lose their ball club, but their manager was promptly fired and replaced by their own player, Frank Robinson. Now, you probably thought that after all of this, there would be obviously never another promotion like this because, well, we saw how it turned out. Yeah, no. The Indians still had 2 more 10-cent beer night promotions planned with new regulations set in place. 4 cups per customer per night. The American League president at the time, Lee McPhail, said fuck that and canceled all promotional events pending league review. I'm interested to know what you thought, and do you think if they'd done things differently, it could have been successful like how the Rangers did? Let me know in the comments, and if you would like more videos like this, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe, because I will be very regularly posting more videos like this soon, so let me know what you'd like to see. Thank you for watching!